Good evening and a warm welcome to Rushcliffe Borough Council's Corporate Overview Group on 24th of February 2025. I would like to remind everyone that the meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. The recording of the meeting will be available afterwards on the Council's YouTube channel. In addition, other people may film, record, post on social media or blog from this meeting. The use of any such images or sound recordings is not under the Council's control. May I remind councillors to please switch off your microphones when you are not speaking. Thank you. Officers that we've got with us today is Charlotte Cabanatac, Head of Corporate Services, and Katie Brennett, Senior Finance Business Partner. So, as always, first item on our agenda is apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor Way, Councillor Sims and Councillor Perec this evening. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Item 2, declarations of interest. Do we have any from the 3 remaining councillors? Item 3, minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of November 2025. Does everybody have it?
I wasn't at that meeting, but I think it says at the end, organise training in the new year for the current chairs and vice chairs of scrutiny and extend to prospective chairs. Understand that bit. So is that the training that was online that was sent out recently, or haven't we?
No, not sent out recently. We've been in the process of.
Oh, so it hasn't happened yet.
It hasn't happened yet. We're hoping that it happens in April. We have now identified a provider. We've got a quote. We are just looking for a date.
Okay, thank you.
Is everybody content for me to sign those minutes? Have a show of hands, please. Thank you. Councillor Punch, mind?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Next item on tonight's agenda is finance and performance management. I'll pass over to Katie for the first section. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So I'm going to give you the financial update for revenue and capital as at Q3, and then Charlotte will discuss the performance, and then we'll take questions at the end if that's okay. So revenue projected efficiency of 1.304 million, mainly due to additional interest and unrequired contingency in finance and some savings in neighbourhoods, mainly due to the fair and round, which not yet required, and savings in Streetwise as the budgets continue to be refined in that area. Some underspends as well. We've got shortfall in planning income, and we've got the cost of planning appeals, but those are covered by reserves. However, because we've got an overall underspend, we will release and immediately top up the reserve again. Table 1 gives you the full overview of the variances by directorate, and Appendix B gives you the details of all the variances over 25,000. Appendix A then shows the plans for the 1.3 million, including those approved in previous quarters. So mainly their appropriations to the LGR reserve and the topping up the planning appeals reserves I've just mentioned. Special expenses is 1.7k overspend. You might have noticed that has reduced from 19k projected last quarter, and that's because the works at Bridgefield for the fencing have now been capitalised. The transformation and efficiency plan is well on track to achieve the in-year savings, and actually is probably going to go beyond those savings due to improved performance at Edwalton Golf Course, and also looking at projected additional income at Rushcliffe Oaks as well. Obviously things can change quickly, and we've still got a couple of months to year end. Capital projected underspend is just over 2 million across a number of schemes, mostly been committed, but will need to be carried forward to complete works next year. Appendix C and E have got full details of those, and Appendix D shows the budget movements since last quarter, which are mainly in relation to additional grant funding. We continue to monitor the collection rates due to cost of living challenges, and it's mostly looking better than the same time last year, which is good news. Inflation's coming down, it's now 3% compared to the 3.4 that we've reported here, which was a December figure, and it's likely that interest rates will follow, which isn't as positive for us as we've not got any debt, and we have been enjoying the higher interest returns as seen by the in-year efficiencies. But overall, the position looks positive. So over to Charlotte for performance.
Also a positive position in terms of performance. So we have 14 strategic tasks which we monitor as part of the corporate strategy. 4 of them have been completed and the remainder have reached 50%, which is excellent because we're halfway through the delivery of the corporate strategy, which is always nice. I'm not going to go into too much detail in terms of this particular item because they are covered in more depth in the second report on the agenda this evening. In terms of performance, 9 indicators have missed their targets, and these are detailed in the report on pages 18 to 22. This is 16% of the indicators that we monitor as part of the corporate strategy. I would be happy to answer any questions that you have on any of those. However, I'm overall satisfied that despite the unanticipated introduction of LGR, neither performance or delivery of the corporate strategy strategic tasks has been adversely affected over the last 12 months.
Open it up to the floor for any questions or observations. So I didn't see who got their hand.
I just wanted to ask, in the conclusion on at 4.15, what page is it? Page 50. Yep. We talk about the position on capital, and we are assuming that LGR is going ahead. However, if it didn't go ahead, will our capital resources be sufficient going forward?
So the obviously the capital resources are diminishing, but ultimately there would be a need to borrow if we weren't able to generate capital receipts, or things couldn't be funded from reserves.
So really what you're saying is that we are working with the assumption that LGR is going ahead, and therefore there won't be a need to borrow. But should that not happen, then there'll be a need to borrow.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter any whether it goes ahead or not at this point. We're continuing, on a going concern basis. We've got the 5-year MTFS position. So obviously, should LGR happen, then we will merge into a new authority, and undoubtedly there will be borrowing as a larger authority. If LGR didn't go ahead and we continue just as Rushcliffe, then things will continue as they are. It's always a moving picture all the time, but we can't rule out the need to borrow in the future.
General questions really. There's obviously in the report there's that we have the asylum dispersal grant, which is 36k for 25-26. I know that now we have set on a outreach worker or something for 10 hours since just before Christmas. So I was just wondering, is that money ring fence, i.e. can only be used to support obviously the asylum dispersal that goes on in Rushcliffe? And that was one of my questions. What was it? So I think you did mention that the West Bridgford special expenses isn't now over. It was obviously above budget, but it's now because of the fencing on Bridgefield, presumably is less than it was or whatever. It's not. No, yeah. And was the original overspend because of the barrier that was put in, because we had obviously travellers that got onto the park was it last year, the year before? Last year.
Yep, so I'll just respond to each of those then. So first of all, the asylum dispersal income. Any of the income that appears in the other grant income line there is all non-ring fenced grants, and that's why it appears in that section there. Any ring fence grants will appear in the top section within the directorates. In terms of the special expenses overspend, yeah, so it's just a slight overspend now, 1.7 K, whereas it was 19 last time. So yes, it was to do with the fencing. I think it was general security, because there's been lots of antisocial behaviour at the park. So I don't think it was ultimately just related to travellers. It's just general security of the park.
No, they had to put in that new barrier. That cost a fair bit, actually.
Yeah, that may be part of it. I'm not. Yeah, I've not seen the specific.
And the other thing that I'm sort of pleased to see is they're saying there's an increased income from Rushcliffe Oaks. So does that mean it's now meeting its targets? Because it was struggling a bit at the beginning, wasn't it?
Yeah, obviously we had the revised business case, and it's expected to outperform that at the minute. So.
Good. So it's going.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, it's one of those things we're basing it on predictions, but you know, only the last 2 months and the actual outturn will tell. But that's what we're expecting at the minute.
It's good to hear. And just on a purely parochial, pleasing point for me, I'm pleased to see that the toilet in the Little Green Cafe in the park is actually going to go ahead. I have to say, I've tried to push that forward for quite a few years, so I'm really pleased, because it's such a good little business, and without a doubt it makes a difference for them to have their own toilet.
I've just got on table 1 on the variances, and then some other things on the corporate like KPIs, where we've got about the saving for wrong table, streetwise, and it's just got due to salary savings offset by agency and overtime. Is that where we're using less agency now in streetwise to cover like sickness and holidays and gaps? And before I was just wanted to understand that.
Yeah, I think the comment just relates to the fact that we have got savings on salaries, but obviously some of that has had to be replaced by agencies a bit within the you know, the areas like streetwise and with refuse collection. You know, we can't sustain any vacancies the same way we can for more admin roles. So there's just obviously the budgets are still settling in for streetwise. So savings have arisen in areas where we put budget. So there's a general underspend in streetwise.
Another question on the indicators is one of the things is around the recycling and household waste, which is down. I know we've had a lot around the curbside collections, which kind of surprises me that the recycling rate's gone down from December, but I would have thought those figures would have been included. But of course we have got simpler recycling that's coming in. Is that going to be looked at of how that's going to be implemented, or is it kind of government led of this is what we need to do? Do we actually kind of have any scrutiny input into that? The same with the contamination rates. Is there anything being done just to kind of change that education and stuff, because of all the changes that are going on? Maybe people are getting confused of what they can and still can't put into the different bins, and do hear like people going that we wouldn't want that glass bin, we'd want green bin, that and etc. And as I say, with the changes of what they can actually take to the recycling centres and what can't they put in. And then my other question is around the can't find the actual one, and I did have it, is the number of users using the leisure centres, and if maybe this is something that potentially could be looked at from scrutiny being community, where it looks at with our partner agencies on what they're doing to try and increase users to come in and use our leisure facilities, because we are investing quite a lot of capital money into the leisure facilities like Keyworth, Copgrave, and then with the building that we're in and Bingham Arena, that it would just kind of be good to get, if there's a work that Lex Leisure are doing, just to kind of find out what, if there has been a drop or if it's just the time of the year. But again, going into Q3, sometimes you think that there's an upturn in people taking out gym memberships because of after Christmas and wanting to lose the Christmas weight, and if that kind of is reflected into these figures, or if it's potentially in Q4 figures.
I'm going to take all of those in reverse order. You're right, Q3 only takes us up to the other side of Christmas. Oh. Well, my lovely assistant sorts out the lights. So no, the upturn tends to come in the post-Christmas period. Quite right, they will see an influx. A lot of the reduction in the figures that we're seeing this year, we believe, is because we hadn't totally anticipated and therefore profiled for the closures to Copgrave and Keyworth for renovations. Hopefully, when we get to the end of Q4, they of course are now back open again, and we should be able to see that people are picking up in those areas. Certainly, it's almost impossible to get a spin class or something like that at Copgrave at the moment, so that's a really positive story. Sorry, Councillor Clark, did you want to? You were just waving, okay. I would suggest, therefore, that yes, potentially we could look at the number of users at leisure centres in terms of scrutiny. I think the return on investment is a good point. We have put lots of money into these facilities. We've also got the leisure centre at Eastleigh coming under the Parkwood contract later on next year, summer 2027. That sounds about right. So it'd be useful to find out where we are with that, but I would perhaps recommend hanging fire until we see what the Q4 performance looks like. In terms of the contamination rates for recycling, so we are currently at 12.7% against a target of 12, so not a massive problem. The national average is 17. So we're still well under that. We're also the best in knots. Most of the items that are being put in the blue bin for recycling, mistakenly at the moment, will be perfectly allowable when we get to April. And therefore, under simpler recycling, it's almost a case of you've just got to let. People are excited about the fact that they can recycle more stuff, but the system isn't quite there yet. However, beginning of next year, it will be. So I think scheduling some form of scrutiny on that, what more can we do, actually probably won't be necessary by the time we get to that. In terms of communications and informing the public, changing their behaviours and such like, I have today proofread the next edition of Rushcliffe Reports, which goes to print next week, which is very heavily all about simpler recycling, both from the changes to glass recycling and the difference that that's made, the changes that we're anticipating in April in a couple of weeks' time, which will be to what items you can put in your blue bin, and then of course looking ahead to October of next year when we have food waste recycling coming on board. And I think that leads quite nicely then into, should we be looking at simpler recycling and recycling in general from a scrutiny point of view? And I'm afraid your point is quite clear. The simpler recycling scheme is so heavily prescribed by central government, and because we have very little control over the waste disposal side of waste, it's always been an issue. We collect it, but it's the VIA contract that's run through the county council that actually determines where it goes. Simpler recycling, we can't change the timetable, we can't bring things forward, we can't change what we put in different bins. It's very, very prescriptive. And although looking at sort of after all of these changes have gone in, where are we now with simpler recycling? Has it made the difference? Are we having the environmental impacts that we'd like? We're about 2 or 3 years off that point in terms of scrutiny. So I think you need to wait for all of those changes to go in before we've got any control over evaluating how it's gone and whether it's made a difference.
Can I just bring in at that point in terms of recycling and informing the public of where we're at and what they can recycle? I came to the Lunar New Year event at the weekend, and there was a stall and there were lots of leaflets, and I said, oh, can I take some of these for my parishes? Oh yes, certainly. And indeed did that. And I was sitting at the breakfast table just looking through one, and I thought, that's not right. We can now recycle bottle tops if they're screwed onto the plastic bottle, albeit I still collect bottle tops. And yes, and the actual leaflet itself didn't have the bin with the purple lid, so it said nothing about glass. Things will change. As of April the 1st, we'll be able to recycle other products, including Tetra Paks. But this was still telling us to take everything to the bring sites. Now, we're putting out double messages here, and no wonder people are confused. I really don't think we should have been putting those leaflets out last weekend. If in 4 weeks' time we're going to be doing something else. I mean, I would have given those out actually at the weekend, because I went to an event in one of my parishes, and I would have given them out if I hadn't sat there and I thought, no, I can't take these, because I was going to breakfast on Sunday and I thought, no, can't do that. So I've got a wodge of leaflets now, which are all waste anyway. So
You need to recycle those.
in the blue bin.
Yeah, well, I think the simpler recycling stuff sounds very useful when it comes in April. I was going to add some of the things to what Councillor Williams said earlier about the recycling stuff. That what worries me, it does mention the green recycling, green waste collected is due to dry weather. I understand, yeah, part of that probably might be, but also there's a perception out there, certainly from members of the public I've spoken to, that they can only sign up for a green bin, sorry, for a yearly cycle in April. So is that correct, or can you sign up at any point for a year? Because or if that is the case, can we work out a way that we can have a 6-month one where someone could come in 6 months in and pay half? Because a lot of people get to August and realise they probably should have had a green bin and they don't want to pay for a whole year. So I don't know whether that's
you can sign up for a green bin at any point during the year, but the payment is exactly the same whether you sign up in April and have the benefit of it for the whole year, or if you sign up in September and only clear your stuff away.
So somebody who signs up in September though will only be paying the full amount until when? The next September or till April?
No, until the following April.
Yeah, so I was wondering if there could be any conversation around the idea of that not being a great idea, because I think it's disincentivizing people in September who then think, well, I would have paid 40 quid if I could sit through the winter and let it all rot down in my bin and then sign up in April. And I think we're losing possibly some people there. I don't know if it's something we can look at, because it's not criticism. It's literally, I think there are a number of people who are getting to that point of the year and thinking they want to pay a full whack for 6 months, well, not even 6 months, 2 months of growing season. And maybe we're missing a lot of people who could be recycling more green waste. That's just an idea.
Just to add, the garden waste scheme starts from February, so it just opened this weekend just gone. Yeah, and then runs through.
Just on that point, is it possible where that percentage for what kind of goes into the blue bin and around the different bins be separated to get an idea of what is being composted and then in the blue and potentially glass, or glass and recycle it in the blue bin together?
I think we can get you some information at a snapshot in time, not
Mhm.
necessarily every single time, but we will have
Yeah.
the breakdowns.
Just going back to the leisure centre numbers and actually the Eastleigh Leisure Centre, because I think obviously the contract, the PFI contract comes to an end. It is 27, isn't it, next year? And you have, well, I've certainly read horror stories of when contracts have come to an end in schools, they have been left in a pretty poor state. I've only been to the leisure centre twice quite recently. Not to use the centre, just to have a meeting in another room. And it was very busy, and it certainly looks in pretty good, nick actually. But really, I suppose that those are the things that Rushcliffe will be looking into before that happens, and they all walk off into the sunset after 25 years of whoever it was that had that contract.
It's actually part of the contract that the facility is handed over in a good state. You accept that it's not going to be as good as the day that you built it, but the company that has it at the moment, it has a responsibility to make sure it's handed over. So where we have been working with them over the last 6 months is actually to identify where they need to be doing remedial works to bring it up to scratch. It's a lot better than it was a couple of years ago already, and they've still got another 18 months left to go.
So, I mean, are their numbers pretty good then in terms of, rates of users? Is it a popular leisure centre? As I say, it was heaving when I was on. There's a swimming pool for children, and the parents were all milling around and everything.
I don't know specifically. Would you like us to find out?
Yeah. One more, that's it. And there's where is it? 750,000 warm homes grant. And I just wondered if we could have any information on how that is spent and how many houses it actually warms or whatever, and what we get for that amount of money, really. I suppose it varies with the house, but just a bit of information.
Yeah, I can certainly ask for that. Yeah, the amount of money we get is determined by the grant, and then it's awarded out. So we're just kind of a passport in between. But yeah, I can find out exactly what is delivered from that funding for you. Yeah.
Right, I haven't got any other questions. So just going on the recommendations, that it's recommended that the projected revenue budget efficiency for the year of 1.304 million, and proposals to earmark this for cost pressures given in Appendix 8 and paragraph 4.1. The projected capital efficiencies of 2.043 million, including the budget changes in Appendix D. C, the projected overspend of special expenses of 1.7k, paragraph 4.7, and D for performance exceptions to judge whether further information is required. And I think we've all met those recommendations this evening, so I can just have a show of hands that we feel that we've met those. Thank you very much. Right, on to item 5, midpoint review of the corporate strategy.
Very much. We're 2 years through the 4-year corporate strategy. The report contains updates building on the report that you had last June. So we're hoping to follow through with any progress on those tasks. It's encouraging discussion. So there are a few questions. I think it's paragraph 4.18 afterwards, but I am specifically drawing your attention to the achievements lifted in paragraphs 4.13 through to 4.16, which cover the progress that officers have made towards the tasks over the last 12 months. There is one of those questions which we've kind of included, which is, do we feel comfortable extending the life of the corporate strategy for an extra year, which gets us through to vesting day, which would seem to be a sensible thing to do at this point in time.
Can I just ask, if we extend it by that extra year, would there be some leeway to amend if something didn't seem to be appropriate anymore?
So the corporate strategy is always what we call a living document.
Yeah.
So if you remember back to last June, we had, for example, off the top of my head, we'd completed the task that was about the corporate peer review. So it falls off. You haven't had any monitoring information about that over the course of this year, but the LGR was just coming out, and we actually included a new task which said, do what you think is necessary to get us through to November. So we took one task, in fact, I think we took 2 tasks out. We've put 1 back in again. This time round, we've got a couple more tasks that have been completed through the course of this year. They don't fall off, they slip into what we call operational monitoring. We keep an eye on things, but you've got scope, therefore, to recommend anything going forward. We do that every year. So there is always an opportunity, because the document evolves, what the council focuses on evolves. With LGR on the horizon, we will be sitting here at this point next year, potentially knowing exactly what's going to happen over the next 12 months. And then we will be able to make those decisions going forward.
When that event, I'd be quite happy for it to be extended the additional year. I wouldn't have a problem with that.
No, I think it is good idea to extend it for that extra year until vesting day. And I think there has been a hell of a lot of progress as outlined on those 4.3 to 4.16 of what's been achieved, and then what we've got with the next steps and where we're looking to enhance what the good work and that's been done by officers on those many different areas, and where we're continuing with LGR still going on in the background as well. So it's just recommended that considers the information provided outlining. Sorry, I thought it was like I was just like looking around the ring. Sorry.
Speaker on just the last thing in table just before 4.18. The last thing in the table was just the conduct a review of the council's asset base, progress to date, council's operational blah blah, and next steps. So, the one that always alarms me, and I just want a bit more information about, is the second bullet point of the next steps. That says sale of assets as identified through the asset review, as reported to and approved by the Asset Investment Group and Cabinet. We don't have any impact on that as a kind of scrutiny body, do we? Because the Asset Investment Group isn't that a group of officers and cabinet members. I'm just wondering, at this point, should we still have that step in there? Because if we're merging into a brand new council, should we be at this stage be talking about selling off assets? It worries me that that's there without any kind of context to that, to me.
It's not my area of expertise at all, but I understand there are very, very clear guidelines moving forward into LGR about what you can and cannot dispose of. It's not seen as either an opportunity to buy lots of stuff or give lots of stuff away. That will most definitely be taken into account through that. So I don't think your concerns are warranted at this particular point with regard to that.
Right, thank you. That was, yeah, just wanted to clarify.
And I think those kind of rules and governance around sales of assets will come out once the kind of the structures and that from whenever it is in the summer comes out, and the way forward is then indicated from central government, was my understanding from the meeting.
The progress to date on the Radcliffe-on-Soar power station. I mean, that still seems to be labouring on to some extent and not getting very far very fast. So, I mean, is there any sort of updates on progress there, or are we? I mean, I know there's the LDO's got to go back to cabinet, has it again, or it's been back? I lose plot. And are we getting any more information in terms of what is happening there, or rather not happening, or how it can be? I mean, what it says in the green bit: provide community leadership in the redevelopment of the Radcliffe-on-Soar site. I'm not quite sure what that actually means.
In terms of community leadership, there's a group of various people from Uniper and the different areas, and MCA and various of our councils, the parish councils in the area and such like. That to me that's providing your community leadership, because you're bringing all those people together and facilitating those discussions to help move things forward. If we think back to the corporate strategy, this was one of those tasks where our role is to influence rather than to actually deliver. And sometimes that can mean that it's very tricky to demonstrate any form of tangible progress in the short term. This is a very, very, very big project. It is going to take a number of times. It will not be complete by the end of the corporate strategy. And we're going to darkness again. I think it's important to bear in mind that whilst it feels that it's very slow and nothing's happening, we are keeping on track. So before Christmas, we had, and in fact, I think it was about October time, we had a written update. From that, we did scrutiny on this item last year, and under the next item here, we've got hopefully the Freeport coming back for another update some point in the next year for growth and development as well. So I think there'll be an opportunity there to question people who come along from the project specifically to talk about it.
I mean, just to say that obviously, what was it, 25% of the business rates came from the power station when we had it. I mean, which obviously left a big hole. I mean, it's getting something back from that, isn't it, really, as soon as possible?
If I can say, yes, these things were all the things that concerned me when we scrutinised it, and I didn't feel I was getting a very glossy brochure, but I wasn't getting any action. So yes, I did ask for a report, and I did at the time ask for them to come back. I've had to put in a further scrutiny request, if you've probably seen, in order to get people to come back. And I believe we're asking both Uniper and the Freeport to come and report to us. But you're absolutely right. I think we've got to keep at it. We've got to keep on it. Mustn't let it slip.
Is there any other further questions or observations on this? So I'll just go to the recommendations. Considers the information provided outlining the council's progress towards delivering the 2024-2027 corporate strategy. Discuss whether the remaining strategic tasks in the 2024-2025 corporate strategy continue to be relevant, achievable and desirable to deliver. Highlight any additional strategic tasks it would be prudent to include in the corporate strategy for its remaining 2 years. And then is to extend the life of the corporate strategy by an additional year to lead the authority through to vesting day under LGR. So if I can have a show of hands that we're all in agreement with that, particularly with D. Thank you very much. And right, next item is feedback from Scrutiny Group Chairman. So, Councillor, come back on.
Well, in some ways, I've just this minute given part of what I was going to feedback, which is about Freeport once again. But in January, at our last meeting, we took on asset management strategy from the governance group to help out with their their rather heavy workload. And we received an updated management strategy and plan, which ensured the ongoing sound delivery of our services. We were very satisfied with that. It also looked at the achievements that we'd made in Rushcliffe, which included things like Rushcliffe Oaks, which is now really performing, if I can use that word, well. And in fact, people are from outside coming to use the services there, which is really pleasing. And also the purchase of land for offsetting, carbon offsetting at Upper Broughton. That does so happen to be within my ward, and I have to say that's an amazing site. The land that they purchase is not prime agricultural land. We couldn't afford to purchase prime agricultural land, but the planting of the trees, the way that Greenwood, who are in partnership with the county council, have organised it so that nobody's view, even when the trees grow, will be obscured because there are smaller trees nearer the village and the bigger trees further down the hill. There's an orchard area, and the Dolby Brook, which borders it, will be allowed to spread and create a wetland. And by opening that Dolby Brook up, it'll slow its course down, and I'm hoping that that will have some impact on the rest of my ward where villages flood. So it may help with flood alleviation. So yes, I thought that was absolutely wonderful. We also looked at our investments and noted that we're getting some very good returns for them. So whilst ever it might seem, some of the investments might seem strange, like the co-op at, where's the co-op we purchased? Lady Bay, thank you. And property at Colville, all bringing good returns. So I don't think there was anything we need worry about there. Our next meeting is on the 25th of March, when we are looking at affordable housing, all types of affordable housing. Now I say all types, and shared ownership, because I asked for Park Homes to be included in those all types of affordable housing. And I am concerned at the process that has gone through, because I've attended several meetings where it's been on the work programme and has passed through the groups and been voted on by the authors of that request. Then at the 11th hour, there's been an objection to it including Park Homes. And I understand officers are now involved and it has been removed. It worries me because that has gone into the public domain. Because it's been at those meetings, the public are aware that Park Homes was going to be scrutinised, and as now it isn't. So I've been asked if I'll put in another request, but I've been waiting for officers to contact me about it. Nobody's been in touch. So I'm a bit concerned about that. But yes, it has been removed, but I would assure those who are watching us at the moment that I will be getting it back. And as I say, my next meeting is 25th of March. Thank you.
Councillor Gort, as the chairs of your groups aren't here, would you like to feedback?
I can go first about the government scrutiny if you like.
Yeah, do. Feel free, Mike.
Well, yeah. So please be prepared that I wasn't prepared to do this until I got here today. But so the main thrust of the meeting, we had internal audits presented and external audit progress presented by the different people that were involved. Everyone was very happy with the work they were doing and resolved to vote that those were good. We've spent a lot of time discussing the risk management systems. There's a number of questions asked by councillors. Councillor Thomas referred to the risk of LGR, and Councillor Gowland mentioned the risk to service delivery, but it was mentioned that there's contingencies in place to cover those. Myself and Councillor Thomas, for different reasons, talked about Gamston, the housing there, and my point was the risk to the 5-year plan for housing, and if we don't get enough, and she mentioned a similar thing. My point was that if they suddenly can't do it there and have to release new sites quickly, how will they do that, and will they have learned from some of the mistakes that were made about building on floodplain that we've had from the previous tranche of housing, and that's whether that could be dealt with. Councillor Turing's brought some stuff up about CCTV. Councillor Thomas mentioned the new homes bonus, capital resourcing appearing as risk, and they're no longer things that we're going to be getting. So it was said that that would be removed in the next cycle. They won't appear. What else do we have? Right, then we moved on to the draft management strategy. We had a big discussion around that as well. What did we get to? The capital investment strategy. The main thing that came up there was one of the references to the 106 money and SIL monies and how they're, we need a list of where they've been spent, because there's people who are asking questions about when it's been spent and how much. And I think Councillor Regan was raising it from a position of concern for the council that rumours were going around that the money was being held and was not being asked for and things like this. He would like it made more clear where the money had been called for and spent, so we could show that. And then in the Councillor Thomas brought up in the next section, which is the capital investment strategy section, she referred to the fact that we constantly say we don't have any external debt, we don't borrow externally, but we are borrowing against Section 106 money that we hold at the council. So we're internally borrowing with 106 money. It's that money is paid, interest on that money is paid when someone calls for that money. And her point was, well, will we have to externally borrow in the future should all that money be spent? And they had to admit that it would. But at the moment, we see that as internal borrowing, even though it's not our money. So it was just she wanted to just clarify that point. I thought it was quite an interesting point, because we do talk about how we don't borrow money, but we are borrowing against the tens of millions that we have in reserve for the 106 money. And that was about it, really. There was lots. It was a long discussion. It was very detailed on all the things. I think we covered. We went into. It was a long meeting. I think everyone was happy that things were scrutinised in great detail. So that is my waffled attempt at a last-minute review of what we did. So if there's any questions.
That's right. Is there anything from community?
Yes, I will do a similar one. The meeting was obviously on, well, obviously it was on the asylum dispersal scheme in Rushcliffe, really, and it was brought about obviously by scrutiny matrix from a councillor where there had been a house used and it was a family house changed into an HMO, and obviously it was filled with, not filled with, there were about 4 or 5 asylum seekers put into the HMO. And so that was sort of how where it started. It was, I thought the meeting was closed, and we had a member from member from the Home Office came along on screen, and obviously someone who was actually dealing from Serco, but who actually was working within the area. So that was really useful. And basically the thrust of the meeting was to have an overview of the current dispersal system in Rushcliffe, to look, consider the legislation to HMOs and how that was affecting the system. And for the committee to provide feedback to the Home Office and to Serco on how it was going. I think certain members weren't happy that obviously the meeting wasn't open to the public and also wasn't screened, wasn't online. But I do think that all members who attended had ample opportunity to ask the questions that they were concerned about, and I thought that both both presenters that came along gave a very honest and open responses to the questions that were asked. And, you know, it was very, very informative. At that time, there were only 5 properties that were actually in use for asylum dispersal in Rushcliffe. I think obviously that's probably increased by a few more certainly now, but you know, that obviously it was not a huge amount compared to other authorities around the country. It was also tied in with the Article 4 development, which is coming through as another scrutiny matter, so I'm not going to go into that because I basically get very confused about it. The meeting were put online, so obviously that was for that did satisfy some concerns, but I think the issue of the Article 4 development people felt was still not resolved, but was addressed. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the feedback from everyone, and thank you very much. I know it's last minute because of apologies. Thank you very much for giving the feedback and review of what happened at the last scrutiny meetings.
I think Tracy said it was last minute, but it would be helpful if the chairs are not going to attend, if we just had a bit of a heads up that they're not coming.
Yeah, both your chairs were illness of last minute, and that's why it was. I only kind of found it in the last hour as well, so it was very last minute. Right, to item 7 is feedback from lead officers.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have any specific feedback this evening, other than to say that I've picked up on a couple of points through that last discussion. So apologies to Councillor Cumberlack if officers have not been in touch about the park homes. I will follow that up this week. And also to explain, just for the sake of those people who are tuning into this meeting as opposed to any other, that in terms of the asylum dispersal scheme, the reason that the meeting was closed to the public and not live streamed was because it was a choice between scrutinising the item behind closed doors, which was at the request of Serco and the Home Office, and not scrutinising it at all. And we felt that on the balance of that, it was more important to make sure that the scrutiny was done than to have the meeting open. If we'd had the meeting open, we would not have had those representatives there. The discussion would have been very, very different. We hope that was clear on the night.
Thank you very much. Going on to the final item is consideration for the scrutiny group work programme. So we have got counting, I think 4. We have 4 scrutiny requests come in, and the reason I say there is 4 because the scrutiny request for Council Strategic Growth Board is to be withdrawn. From that, there's been further conversations with the councillor who submitted it and officers around that, so there's further discussions on what can be scrutinised and how it can be scrutinised. So they're happy. The councillor's emailed to say that he is happy for it to be withdrawn. Yes, it is. Yeah. So going on to the first scrutiny request, it's a repeat for scrutiny, and this is to do with Metropolitan Thames Valley Homes, where and it's from Councillor Perec, who is the chair of the community scrutiny group, and that's where it's just to kind of get Metropolitan back with some of the unanswered questions from the previous meeting that they had. So it's all outlined in the request there. So we're kind of content with taking that forward, and then we'll discuss where it can fit into the programme on the kind of the next item.
Can I just ask, when it comes to them coming to the meeting to be quizzed, does this restrict to what we can ask them about, or is this just a guideline? Because the bullet points are really good, but can we ask them about other things linked to their role?
The way that we use these, so the scrutiny requests are really useful for this group to say, actually, is this a good piece of scrutiny, a good piece of time spent and such like. So those key lines of inquiry are really important to helping you make an informed decision here. We also then send them both to the officers who are preparing any form of report or presentation, and if there's an external party coming in to talk as well, they get a copy of this, so they know exactly what it is that you're looking to find out. It doesn't restrict what you can ask them on the night. Obviously they'll come and give their spiel, hopefully address some of these points. You can ask any questions you like. If you ask something completely off the wall, they may not have the answer to hand, but this at least gives them an idea of what you're looking for.
So just show content with that to come back onto the programme. Yeah, thank you.
Can I just say,
Yeah.
It also depends when, because it's a very short time since they came, isn't it? I mean, and we would expect progress as well, but it depends on where we put them.
Yeah, that's what I was going to discuss in a minute. Once we've kind of gone through and then see which ones can go to which committees and how many we've got. Again, office time in order to do the reports and what's involved, as you say.
If I might say, historically, we used to have Metropolitan attend every year. Sorry? Oh, hello, money house make light work again. Yes, so yes, Councillor Plant, yes, maybe having it at scrutiny, and if there are questions that haven't been answered, yes, ask them to come back. But yes, you're right. Having it every year was probably overkill.
So the next request is another repeat, and it's already been mentioned by Councillor Comblatt, is the East Midlands Freeport to go back to growth and development.
If I can just say, Councillor Gaunt, yes, there are a bullet point of questions on there. I'm hoping there'd be more.
So we'll contact for that to come back to the scrutiny programme to go on to growth and development. Have a show of hands, please. Thank you very much. Right, and the next request is from Councillor Gallop regarding road sweeping. And this is just looking at around how road sweeping is done around the borough, and if anything is done around parked cars that are there and sweeping around them, and if anything is, if they are kind of removed or anything done about them. So I'll open it. We do have, I think, one road sweeper in Streetwise so that we could potentially influence. But again, it's very much a.
I thought you were going to suggest that we went for a joyride on it, actually.
just like trying to think what we do with this, if it's a kind of a county element rather than a borough one. As I say, my knowledge, we have one road sweeper.
Sorry, we've got the big one, haven't we? And then a little one, because I mean, I know that this is definitely, I'm not saying this only in West Bridgford, but obviously it's an issue, big issue in Bridgford, because of course you've got all the parked cars. And then, I mean, occasionally, I mean, I'm at the front of my house in my little office, and I have looked out and thought, oh God, here it comes. There's no chance. Yeah, because this, even in the day, obviously lots of people are still either working from home, so the cars are still there. But I know that I've spoken to Darryl about this. He's got the little one that tries to get in and out and in between. But how, and then you get moans from residents about the drains are full of leaves because they're in the gutter, but you can't get the sweeper to sweep them anywhere else.
I think it's a useful one to bring those that they've got what we can influence and talk to them and ask them what they can do, because parked cars is huge. I mean, they resurfaced. It's a totally different thing, but they resurfaced a road in Rullington around the parked cars. So
What?
yeah, but it's not for this scrutiny group, but it was done by. It's quite remarkable, and it's still like it. But yeah, well, there's the road has a black surface, and then it goes around where the car was, and it's still grey. But anyway, that's a different thing. But it is an issue, isn't it? I mean, on my street alone in Ruddington, the pine needles come off, which is beautiful. But if the cars are there, they just stay piled in huge amounts and then go down the gutters. So it would be, if we can influence this in some way and have some effect, I think it's a good thing to bring and ask questions about and prove that. Yeah.
Content for it to come onto the programme. Have a share of that answer for yes. Thank you. And the final one is an officer request for scrutiny, and it's around Article 4 direction and the HMOs. So for just anyone, we're using an acronym. So for people who doesn't know what a HMO is, it's houses of multiple occupancy. Because I know, like the police, councils are full of acronyms. So just so people know what it stands for. So again, it's this has come from Cabinet on the 10th of February, and then it also kind of follows on from that item at community scrutiny group as well. But again, it depends on when if it was to go on, where, and the timings. So I open it to the floor if there's any kind of thoughts on this. Yep.
No, I think we should definitely look at it. I like the idea of getting some evidence. Like, I think what's scary is the discussions around HMOs are clouded with gut feelings and fears rather than evidence. So if we get some evidence about the numbers and the impacts and things like that in our area, it would be really useful, because just to allay fears if there is nothing to be scared of, or to guide enforcement if there is issues. So I think it's really important. Yeah, thanks.
I'm in agreement that it should be scrutinised, but I think we have to be very careful, because HMOs are used by students, by doctors, by nurses. Somehow the HMO words fill people with horror. Well, it needn't necessarily be so. So I think we need to be very careful about, yeah, how we scrutinise it and the language we use and what we say.
It's the outcome at the bottom says it all, really, doesn't it? A better understanding of the evidence base and potential impact of introducing the Article 4 direction. So, and didn't it come to council? Didn't it? It came to full council, or did I make that up? I dreamt that. Wasn't there something about it full council?
It went through cabinet.
Yeah. So it went. No, this is the result. Sorry. This is one of the things from Cabinet on this item where it went there, is to then do scrutiny around this for those bullet points, and what you said is to see what the impacts are of them locally, and to kind of where we compare in Rushcliffe to other areas that have got them, and those kind of things to get an understanding. So I'll kind of go to a vote for it to come onto the programme. So you're all happy with it coming on? Great, thank you very much. And that one would be growth, and which one would that be? Growth and development.
I think it probably would be best if I just have a few minutes to talk through. The majority of my day, if you don't mind, has been spent trying to fit various things into the scrutiny programme. It's a bit complicated, so can I just, before we get on to communities and growth and development, which is where the majority of the moving is, Corporate Overview Group in June has got an annual update on the strategic tasks. Now, given that today you've looked at the midpoint review of the strategic tasks, do I really need to start writing a report in 2 weeks' time that is a further update 2 months down the line? Or do we think that we can wait 12 months before we have another update?
Well, no, this is for this group.
Mm.
So the next meeting is an annual update on the strategic tasks. So it's very much like we've done on the midpoint review that we've just had tonight's meeting, that essentially it's going to be that, but what's happened in 2 months' time.
Yeah.
So I think
In which case, thank you very much for freeing up my time.
Next year, as we've kind of done it now, in a sense, I would think we've met that requirement.
Okay, so I'm kind of going to knock some of these easy ones off first. So you've just agreed that the East Midlands Freeport comes back to scrutiny. And I've got that one penciled in for July, growth and development, if you think that that's okay. So you've got your shared ownership and other affordable housing in March, and then the Freeport UNIPA coming back in July. So hopefully that is quite straightforward. I'm currently going to park for a moment road sweeping and also Metropolitan Thames Valley housing, just because there is more pressing things to talk through. So for the community scrutiny group, at the moment, you've got in April the carbon management plan update, which is usually a very meaty item, and the West Bridgford contact point review, both of those items in for April. And then the Cabinet recommendation on Article 4 specified that they would like you to scrutinise Article 4 in July and report back to Cabinet. So there's a time sensitivity in that one. Now, you may have heard on the grapevine in various different ways. I know you haven't seen the council papers yet because they don't get published until tomorrow. But in the budget report that is going to council on the 5th of March, there are 2 recommendations. One of which is for scrutiny to look at removing the second homes council tax premium. And one is to consider and potentially develop a policy for removing the requirement to pay council tax from residents who are terminally ill. Now, having spoken to various officers in the pulling of that together, because both of those things, although one is taking away something we already do and one is putting something in that we don't do yet, they think they can cover those 2 items under one report on one night, because the council tax exemption for terminally ill patients, the budget report would like that to be backdated to the 1st of April. Obviously, the sooner we get a policy in place and make a decision, the more people that will benefit quicker. So Peter Linfield would like both of those items also discussing in July at communities. And I've been back and forth over the course of today as to whether we can put them in a different group, whether they can be looked at different people. Do we start the meeting early? Do we have 2 meetings? We've come to the conclusion that actually, because they're quite tied down in legislation, those 2 council tax items, while significant for our residents, are probably not going to be massively complex discussions. So we believe that they can be held on the same evening as the Article 4, and all 3 of those things, which are all coming from Cabinet or Council as recommendations for the scrutiny group to look at, can be done in one evening. That's down for you to decide whether you want to do that. There is always the possibility of perhaps starting that meeting a little bit earlier. Moving on to October, we currently have a review of debt collection agents by RBC. I'm proposing that we might want to consider moving that forward. So if you remember when we put this one on the programme, it was dependent on us having responded to a government consultation and for the results of that to be known. As we stand at the moment, the consultation isn't even out yet. So that may well move, but it would also free up an evening where we can have Metropolitan Thames Valley housing in, because I believe that the chairman would like to consider that as a one item agenda. We could move the debt collection agents into January 2027, and we can stick the road sweeper in there as well, just to make it an exciting evening. But you're looking at a point where you've got 2 items pretty much, or a very meaty item, on every community scrutiny group from here until vesting day. So yeah, I'm juggling with that particular group. So it's really up to you now. I've made a proposal as to how I can fit it all in for you.
Yes,
I've got my notes. It's really up to you to decide, is that the right order in which to deal with things?
So I think we'll go with each group to kind of, just because corporate and then governance kind of are a little bit easier to discuss because of the changes and what's going on. So with corporate, and we've agreed already, is at the next meeting for June is to take off the annual update on strategic tasks. So everything else would stay the same. Governance, there is no proposed changes to that works programme. Which I'm not quite sure the dates on here is correct. I've got 2024, 25 and 26, 27. There's no. So then going on to growth and development, for that is the Freeport. So March has always got shared ownership and other affordable housing, and then July would then have the Freeport. And then currently nothing in October and January, but we do have corporate overview group, this group meeting before then, in order to bring stuff forward for those meetings. So we do have some time for it, like Park Homes, etc. And if there is anything else that comes from council, from requests. So then going on to communities, which has often been, even from when I was chair of the group, the one that to juggle what goes on it and where to fit them in, and it's not just about having 2, it's also what is the item and discussing it and make sure that that item is felt that it has the most time to, in order to be discussed and scrutinised. So I've got, please forgive me if I've written it down wrong, is July is to have Article 4, and then about the second homes and the terminally ill taxation. October is then to be Metropolitan Homes to come back with the repeat or return scrutiny item, and then January 27 is to move the debt collection to that meeting and road sweeping. Which my personal view is that it's very kind of logical, and everything with the time constraints, like the 2 items for the July meeting, in order to fit those in, and that also that it gives as well with Metropolitan Homes. I think it's been over, that would still be over a year for them to return, to come back. So from what was discussed at the last communities meeting, there is then time that they've got for some things that they've implemented and looked at, and kind of requests from that meeting of how they're then doing in order to be scrutinised when they come back, and also some of the items that weren't met or felt that they weren't answered, and the subsequent report from them. And then likewise with January, it's got 2 items there to fill the programme. And if it is felt that July needs to be extended, like the start time brought forward, then that can be discussed between the chair and vice chair and officers, if it's felt, in order to give those ample time, and how those kind of going into that meeting. But again, it's there's some time in order to discuss. So Happy to pose that. Have any questions? No? Happy to, sure, I'll vote to take that forward. Thank you very much. Did you want me to go through it? We have got another cog that I can then show it in it. So right, I think that is everything on tonight's agenda. I don't think there's anything else. So I close the meeting at 20:15. Thank you very much, councillors, for your time. Thank you.